Yes, guys, and welcome to the Sunderland vs Sporting Lisbon match review, where Sunderland have fallen to their first defeat of pre-season. However, as the thumbnail does suggest, there was absolutely loads, and I mean loads of positives to take away from that game. But before we do get into it, guys, if you could do us a massive favour, hit the like button for me. It'd be so appreciated. And of course, if you're not yet subscribed, please do if you're currently enjoying the content. It really does mean the world. But getting into it, we did the usual, or at least what we did against Sevilla. We had a game of two halves. We had two teams, a different team per half. The first one was somewhat close to what you'd think is our best 11. There was a couple of changes in there. You had Harrison Jones playing at left back. Blondie played in goal. I believe Patterson has a knock at the moment. So we had Blondie in goal. We had Ballard and Sealt in as the centre-back partnership. We had Hume at right back. In the middle, we had that trio, which I'm going to get into, by the way, and I'm going to gush over it a little bit because it is looking so exciting in the middle of the park with Siddiqui, Diarra and Lefebvre, because they were outstanding. Considering that they've never really played together before, it looks like they're only going to improve, and they were so good. Or at least it looked really good today. There were so many glimpses of quality and class in there, and they're only going to improve the more they play together. Then on the right, we had Talby, the left, we had Adingra, and up top, we had Mayenda. Now, firstly, I just want to say, Sporting Lisbon, this is a really high quality team, and arguably a better quality side than Sevilla, given Sporting have just come off the back of two wins in their respected league, two championship winning league seasons in their respected league. So this is a champion team. This is a team with a champion's mentality. It's a real high level ability side that we're against. Of course, again, it's only pre-season, but it's a really good test for these lads. Now, getting into it, the opening 10 minutes was a little bit erratic. We go at one end, nearly get a half chance here and there. Adingra kept getting to the byline. It'd either be a cross being blocked or an overhit cross. Talby as well on the right hand side. Then they break forward and we managed to get it away. And we were largely limiting them to very little. They weren't really getting in behind us at all, apart from the goal, which we'll get to. After about 10 minutes so, a little over 10 minutes, they did pump a ball over the top. One of their men were way offside, so he's left it for the onrushing number 19, who, by the way, he lit an infernal rage in me because he was just an absolute knobhead, just dirty challenges all over the shot. He's bitching and moaning at our players all day long, and he struck a remarkable resemblance to a certain Rocky villain, Ivan Drago, which didn't help the hatred in my heart anyway. But anyway, so the ball does get put over the top. You could argue maybe Trey could have tucked in a little bit better, but Blondie is in no man's land. He couldn't decide whether to come for it, whether not to come for it. He's kind of nearly gone, then he decided not. And to be fair to him, he did somewhat well in trying to sort of guiding the striker away from goal, pushing him out wide, but the number 19 is good enough and he hooks it back across goal and it's a tap in to make it 1-0. But from there on in, I felt like we absolutely dominated, and that midfield trio of Lefebvre, Diarra, Siddiqui were outstanding. As the game wore on, the little triangles around their midfield, where at first, by the way, their midfield looked fantastic. They always seemed to have an extra man in midfield. They had that almost arrogance and that swagger of a team that have come off the back of winning their division. But we did start to dominate, and their triangles were fantastic. The quick movement, Lefebvre occasionally dropping in deep to get involved with the triangles. Then Siddiqui would overlap in the middle, or Diarra would. And then Talby, I think he grew into the game a lot, because the opening 10-15 minutes, I had a similar-ish impression that I got from him from the Sevilla game, where I felt like every time he got the ball, he kind of didn't want to put a foot wrong, so he played the easy pass. He would go backwards or sideways. But as the game wore on, he was tucking in and he was getting involved with the triangles and then overlapping runs. Adingra did well on the left-hand side. I think his final ball at times was somewhat questionable. However, he did break down the left-hand side. I think he gave it over to Lefebvre. He pulls it back to Mayenda and about 6-7 yards out. Admittedly, the ball was a little bit behind him, but he tried to hook it back towards goal and it's gone wide. Another chance where Lefebvre tried to slide Mayenda through and he just couldn't get there. Talby, like I said, cut inside. Nice couple of 1-2s replays it. Then we find Diarra. It's a tight angle, but it has loads of space on the right hand side, and he's just thumped it towards the near post, and the keeper makes a good save. Another one where nice little triangles fell to Talby on the edge of the box, and he hits it hard and low, but it's too close to the keeper. We were making chances, and then as that half was wearing on, we just looked an absolute different beast. And I've never seen the midfield, of course, since the championship season. And for a while, I haven't seen such quality just ooze from that midfield. We started to dominate the Portuguese champions, which, again, it's only pre-season. But again, it is positives. And we did, of course, we conceded in the second half. You could maybe say on paper, yeah, they didn't concede, so they were better. But of course, that isn't everything. But we did look really, really good, really sharp as the game went on. And I said online as well on Twitter or X, I was saying I kind of don't want them to change it at half time. Of course, I knew they were going to, but because I felt like we were just starting to turn the screws for the final sort of 10, 15 minutes that first half, or for a large part of it actually, we're really starting to really get into our stride, making loads of nice little moves, and we give them absolutely nothing. Sealt, for me, of course, Dan Ballard is the main man at the back at the moment, but Sealt, he hasn't put a foot wrong. And for me, he was absolutely outstanding. He was having none of it, winning everything in the air. And one challenge in particular that sticks out like a sore thumb for me is their right winger, who was this rapid lad. He managed to nick the ball around Jones at left back. He's trying to put the ball past him, and as he's trying to re-meet the ball, Sealt had just come flying in, perfectly timed challenge. He's absolutely smashed through the ball, and he took Jones with him as well. But it just shows he does have quality, that lad. I know we don't really have depth and abundance across the pitch in a lot of areas, but at the back we really are lacking in numbers because of injuries, and of course we are looking to bring in centre backs at the moment. But he's doing himself no harm at all, Sealt, because he's looking absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that was pretty much the first half in a nutshell. But there was so many positives to take from it because we looked like such a good team that, of course, I'm going to keep repeating myself. I know it's pre-season. I don't get too excited, but there were just so many positives to take, and I loved seeing that style of play. Now, the second half, again, very much like the Sevilla one, it was fringe players and youth players sort of thrown together, and that absolutely shone on the pitch. Yeah, we didn't concede, and again, to be fair to them, we did largely limit them to shots from distance and half chances here and there. They didn't really get it behind or anything. We had Triantis and Johnson as a centre-back partnership. We had Jensen Jones at left-back, Dan Neil and Brown in the middle, Abdullahi and Chutarov started up top. You had Roberts on the right-hand side, Alexic on the left as well. Now, to be fair to Chutarov, after that, I think it was the opening minute or so, he picked a loose ball up from the middle, and he just drove us all the way from the halfway line. He's taken our couple of men, got it all the way to the edge of the box, and he won us a free kick, which ultimately came to nothing. And we didn't really have many more chances after that. A couple of crosses in the box that didn't come to anything. But a lot of the figures, like a Dan Neil, he caught a very frustrating figure to me. I think after about 10 minutes, Dan Neil had his usual sort of game where in tight areas, he was quite good at like wriggling away from 2 or 3 men that were sort of doubling up on him or tripling up on him and then popping off the ball neatly. But then he had a bit of a frustrating half where a lot of his passes were going amiss, going astray. Roberts was losing the ball quite a lot. Brown, for me, I think he actually didn't do himself any harm at all. I think he was actually decent. Alan Brown, every time he got the ball, he was very positive. He was playing for the team. And that's something I was going to come to for the second half. It might sound a little bit harsh, and I kind of understand the mentality of particularly the young lads out there. They know that they're not going to get too much game time throughout pre-season, and this is the time, and these are the moments where in pre-season, before the Premier League season, they're only going to get a very tiny chunk of time, a very limited amount of time to try and prove themselves. And that's where I think a handful of the players out there, they were playing for themselves and not for the team, whereas the first half, they were playing for the system. They were playing for the routine in which we play, the patterns of play. They were playing for each other, and you could see what that was. But in that second half, you had the likes of Alexic, who was probably the biggest, almost not criminal, that sounds awful, but he was sort of the worst one for this, in my opinion, in terms of when the easy ball was on, he was just trying to take on that team every single time. He just drives straight into danger every single time, or he just runs to the byline and run it straight out of play. He did that a handful of times, and again, cut a very frustrated figure. And I think particularly the senior players, or some of the fringe/senior players who have had first team football, they become very frustrated with that. You can see a lot of hands getting flailed around a little bit, which isn't nice to see. But we did make very, very little. But at the same time, to their credit, like I said, we limited them to very, very little as well. For the last sort of 15, 20 minutes, we brought Matty Young on, put him in goal. Ogunsoyi come on as well. Didn't really get too much, to be fair to him. There was only 10, 15 minutes left. And yeah, so it did run out to 1-0 defeat, but there were plenty of positives. But like I said, that first half for me, Siddiqui, for me, he just looks the absolute bollocks. He looks so good. And I know I said it in the last one. I'm probably going to say it for a lot of reviews for Siddiqui. He covers every blade of grass, as does Diarra. But Siddiqui just stuck out like a sore thumb for me in this one because not only was he covering ground, and I know that doesn't sound like it's the best thing in the world or the best attribute or the most exciting attribute, but every loose ball in the middle, even if it was 3 or 4 Sporting players crowded in the middle, he was just nicking it off and playing the easy pass. He was winning everything, all loose balls he was cleaning up. He was going hard in challenges to players that were really trying to bully him, and he was having none of it, like I said in the Sevilla game. And I think he's going to end up being a fan favourite, And he said it was a social media post earlier today, I think, when he was I think they were asked what he brings to the table, and he said that he likes to base his game of Kante, and he did bode a striking resemblance to Kante at times. And it was not just nicking the ball off and doing the defensive duties, he was breaking forward as well. And that trio, as I said, that triangle of Lafay, Diarra and Siddiqui, they just seem to gel together so well, and that will only improve against Talby. I will keep on saying as well, he was improving. I think as his confidence goes, he will start getting at plays a bit more, but he was getting involved in the play as the half went on. Adingra looked really sharp out wide. I think his first touch at times was slightly questionable, but as soon as he got himself under control, got the ball under control, he was always wanting to ask questions, but not like Alexis, where he tried to take on everyone. If it wasn't on, he'd give it and then he'd move and he'd try and find himself into space, if that makes sense. But yeah, so there were plenty of positives. We made loads of chances in that first half. We could have very, very easily made that 3-4, maybe even 5-1 in that first half. It just wasn't to be. It just wasn't our day. And that second half, it was clearly just a run out for a few players. Now, of course, Wilson, Easter, I'm trying to figure out what's going on there. He didn't figure today. Neither did Huggins. Pato has picked up a knock, which I found out. It's nothing major, but that's why he hasn't been featuring. I don't know whether Wilson's just been given a break. Huggins, again, he's someone who's been given a break. We need to really manage minutes. Don't know whether it's the same with Wilson Isidore. I think Regis maybe just wanted to give Abdullahi one last chance or another few minutes in the tank. Same with Tutorov and with Ogunsoye. So maybe he's just said to Wilson, I'll leave you out on this one type thing, which is fair enough. But yeah, I think something that I take away from this as well, as I say, that trio in midfield is looking very, very exciting. And it does beg the question, where does that land, or where does that put someone like Dan Neil? Because Dan Neil in the Championship, of course, is a great player. I think he's a very good player. Is he Premier League standard? Of course, we don't know yet. He hasn't been tried and tested yet. He captained us to the Premier League, so of course we're always going to be grateful for that. And I think on his day, he's a Rolls Royce of a player. But when I'm looking at Siddiqui, when I'm looking at Diarra, when I'm looking at Lafay, I don't think he comes close, sadly. And at the moment where you've got Dan Neil, where there's question marks over him signing a contract, which he still hasn't signed, and I just don't see him getting into that midfield at the moment. It looks like we're only looking to add to it. Of course, we're linked with A, B, C, D, E, F, G at the moment with loads of different players. It's only going to get harder, which it's a good thing, but you just like to think that it isn't causing a rift somewhere, which I don't think it is. I think there's a very good set of characters and a very good sort of set of like camaraderie amongst the camp at the moment. You can see it in all the clips. I know you can only glean so much from clips, but they all seem to get on. They all seem to gel really well together. But like I said, the likes of Dan Neil, he did cut a very frustrated figure this evening, and understandably so. He's used to being surrounded by better players, and that's not to disrespect the youth players that are thrown in there, but we didn't really have a cat and hell's chance in that second half. To me anyway, we didn't create much, and neither did they again. But either way, I'm rambling here. It's just a few sort of lingering thoughts at the end of the game. But yeah, loads of positives to take. Really exciting stuff. Let me know down below what you thought of the game. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think about the Dan Neil situation? I know I kind of just naturally came onto that, but it was just a lingering thought. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But if you've enjoyed, hit the like button for me. It's massively appreciated. Subscribe if you're new. But for now, how are the lads? Keep the faith.